Welcome to the Aboriginal channel. This episode will be another part to Aboriginal forts and castles. So right here we're looking at Fort Clinch State Park. It's in northeast Florida. Right here we can see that its flanks, or the backside of it, is to the water. And then this part right here, that's kind of hard to see, but it is a canal or an embankment right there in the front for defenses. Also, it has levels of ground. It's hard to tell from here, but I added another photo I'll show you right now that'll give you an example of how this is basically structured as a mound with bricks intertwined. So right here we're looking at the entrance way that's pretty much underground. As you see, it's like I said, mounds are intertwined with this whole structure right here. As you can see behind the wall right here, the level of earth is higher, and then down here it's kind of lower down in this area here. So there's levels. You see where it goes up. It's almost like a stairway coming up right here. There's levels to it down there. It's a major earthen structure. This fort is located in the very corner up here in the state of Florida, sort of by St. Augustine, another fort that we viewed in a previous video. And right here, when you look it up, it'll show a coat of arms. And in the coat of arms, you have that red lion, and then you have what looks like a castle right here. So back over here it says Fort Clinch is a 19th century brick fortress begun in 1847 after the end of the Second Seminole War. It was named in honor of General Duncan Lamont Clinch. Now, who is Duncan Lamont Clinch? Duncan Lamont Clinch was an American Army officer who served as a commander during the First and Second Seminole Wars. He also served in the United States House of Representatives representing Georgia. He led the attack in Negro Fort. So it says it was named in honor of General Duncan Lamont Clinch, important figure in the First and Second Seminole Wars. The only battle to occur at Clinch was when Union troops recaptured the fort in 1862 after Confederate forces seized control the previous year. So the Confederate forces, which were the Indians, especially in Florida, always had control but lost control in 1862. Now, when we go look at the battles map of the Civil Wars, we can see that that fort, which is right above this green area right there, and then the fort at St. Augustine, which is right below it in the other county, were very, very close in proximity to battles. Now, it says that there was action at Fort Clinch, which is located up here, not represented on the battles map as having a Civil War battle in it. However, it says that the only battle to occur at Clinch was when Union troops recaptured the fort in 1862. So there was a battle there. However, it's not showing up on the map, which kind of alludes to the fact of many other cases where that exists, which we'll get to right now. So on a side note, we're going to look at another little area right here in Florida where you see this red dot right here at this map. It says that there was a Yulee Sugar Mill Ruins Historic State Park. Is a Florida state park located in Homosassa off US 19. It contains the ruins of a sugar plantation owned by David Levy Yulee. It says Yulee was a delegate of the Florida Territorial Legislative Council. After Florida became a state, he was elected by the legislature in 1845 to the United States Senate, becoming the first American of Jewish heritage to serve there. After Florida seceded from the Union, Yulee served in the Confederate Congress. He is credited with having developed a network of railroads that tremendously boosted the state's economy. Pause. We got to go over here and look at the railroads as of 1860, before the Civil War took place. So in the state of Florida, you had this little bit going up to that fort that was up there, going down here where Yulee's so-called plantation was, which was maybe a little further down. His plantation was a little further down than that. Then over here was the Alapache Indians' capital, Tallahassee. So there was a railroad in 1860 going right here. Then after that, a bunch of other railroads came in, as you can look right here. But we're going to go back over here and see what it says. It says at Homosassa, Yulee established a sugarcane plantation, which was destroyed during the American Civil War. Pause. So if we look back over here at this red dot, it's located right here where the cursor is moving. That's where that so-called sugar plantation was at. And it said it was destroyed during the American Civil War. However, no battles show up here in that area. just down here in Hillsborough County, which is Tampa, up this way and over here. But the railroad goes from right here to up there to over here. Now, it goes on to say that the original plantation covered more than 5,000 acres and was worked by approximately 1,000 enslaved African Americans. Now, and then it goes on to say the large mill ran from 1851 to 1864. And that's a bald-faced lie, because if you go and look at your research, you'll see that I believe from 1855 to 1858, there was the Third Seminole War in Florida. And then there were also battles there from 1861 to 1865. So in the midst of all of this battling and warring, they're saying that they were producing sugar, syrup, molasses, and all this while all this warring was going on with 1,000 enslaved African Americans. There's no way. When you go look up David Yulee, it says that during his 20s, Levy served in the territorial militia, including during the Second Seminole War, which was from 1835 to 1842. But it says right here that in 1834, he was present at a conference with Seminole chiefs, including Osceola. So whatever happened at that conference a year later, the Second Seminole War took place. Okay, so he was in it. Then down here it says in 1851, Yulee founded a 5,000-acre sugarcane plantation built and maintained by enslaved African Americans along the Homosas River. Says that during the Civil War, he did not seek any election or appointive office. Says during wartime, he served in the legislative, as some sources state that he served in Confederate Congress and others do not. After the war, Yulee was imprisoned in Fort Pulaski for 9 months for treason, specifically for aiding in the 1865 escape of Jefferson Davis. It says during Reconstruction, he received a pardon, then released from confinement. He returned to Florida and rebuilt the Yulee Railroad, which had been destroyed by warfare. Goes on to say that he served as president of the Florida Railroad Company from 1853 to 1866, as well as president of the Peninsular Railroad, Tropical Florida Railroad, and Ferdinandia and Jacksonville Railroad companies. His development of the railroads in Florida was his most important achievement and contribution to the state. He was called the father of Florida railroads. His leadership helped bring increased economic development to the state, including the late 19th century tourist trade. In 1870, Yulee hosted President Ulysses S. Grant in Ferdinandia. So basically, this is all showing how they didn't destroy Yulee's railroad tracks in Florida during the Civil War. Those weren't his railroad tracks. Because before all that, he served a long time as a Democrat to the United States Senate, then the United States Committee of the Private Land Claims, then the United States Committee of Naval Affairs. So he was well connected into the United States, which was the Union. So there's no way they came down and then wrecked his stuff and then let him go back down and rebuild it. And then he hosted Ulysses S. Grant. No, that this whole thing right here shows that there was no Confederate Europeans and Union Europeans fighting each other during the Civil War. When you go look at his mill right here, you can see how it's built, that it's an American Indian design. There's no way this man who fought against Indians during the Second Seminole War was allowed to have 1,000 slaves on a plantation right there in between them. Now, another catch to this is right here. It says he served as a Florida legislator to the Senate and resigned in 1861 in order to support the Confederacy at the start of the American Civil War. Then down here it says after the war, Yulee was imprisoned in Fort Pulaski for 9 months for treason. So how could he commit treason if he was resigned? The whole purpose of resigning was for him to be able to support the Confederacy, which he did by specifically aiding in the 1865 escape of Jefferson Davis, which was the president of the Confederacy, so they say. Another interesting fact is that the town of Fernandina Beach, Florida, has a statue of Yulee. Yet up here it says he's responsible for the ownership of so-called 1,000 slaves. But back over here at the Fort Clinch, see these diamond shapes at the end of this building? That's what gives this whole thing away. Not only that, the mounds that it's built on. history books, which has all been a lie. So therefore, if it's a lie, then what's the truth? If it's a lie,